Hello, my name is Mike. This is a bike. This is a model of a V92C. Kind of dusty from sitting on top of my big display here. And it doesn't get played with too much, which is probably a good thing. Now you'll notice I'm pulling the engine back out of my project Granada. Now why would I do that? Well, I wanted to talk to you guys a little bit about being a cheapskate, because you see, sometimes it's false economy. So most of the time, if you can find a cheaper part and modify it slightly to make it work, you come out money ahead. And every now and then, well, you screw up. And my biggest mistake was assuming that a 302 and a 351 block were only different in the stroke. Hey, Daddy, come here. Daddy wants to join the party. And it turns out there's quite a few other differences, including the oiling system. So I went ahead and I got the correct oil pan after returning the wrong one, and I used the oil pickup tube that was supposed to be for a 302, and I walled out the holes so I could get the bolts to fit into the oil pump. Well, the opening on the pickup tube and the opening on the oil pump weren't very aligned, and consequently there's a restrictive path right there, and so even though I got the engine running, it runs great, the oil pressure was noticeably low. I wasn't getting the full oil flow to the pump. It was getting about, at best, cold, thick oil at only 30 psi. And when it warmed up, it dropped down to even less. That engine, when the engine oil is cold and it's got the STP in it, so it's real thick, it should be pushing 50 psi, maybe 60, something like that. Anyway, I ordered the correct pickup tube. To put it in, you gotta drop the pan. And I had to drop the pan anyway. Because remember, I showed you in one of my other videos, there's a little housing that they attach to the side of the pan for an aftermarket oil pickup or oil dipstick. And the dang thing is leaking. And that's the manufacturing defect. There's a gasket in there that's leaking. And I was going to put a patch on it. Now I can fix it properly. So, re-yanking the engine, I'm going to drop the pan. And I figured, look, while I'm in there, since I got to replace the pickup tube anyway, I'm going to put a new oil pump in it. The pump that's in it's working fine, but I went ahead and got a high volume oil pump, only because I know this is an older engine, and I want to give it as much juice as I possibly can. We want all those spinny things to be able to spin easily, so we want to give them plenty of delicious juice. So we have the oil pump already, but still waiting on the pickup tube, but it'll arrive in the next day or so. So that's what this video is going to be about. It's going to be me fixing the leaking oil pan, putting the correct pickup tube in it, and putting a new oil pump in it. The other reason I decided to pull the motor instead of trying to weasel the pan out from under it is because I've got to do a little bit more work and get more clearance on the shift linkage from the column shifter. The headers, the aftermarket headers, run right up against the shifter, and so in order for me to get any kind of exhaust system on it, I got to get more clearance. So that'll be a lot easier to do when the engine's not in there, and I can crawl right in there and manipulate and drill and bend and whatever it is that I end up having to do. So stick around. Hi, doggy.
Somewhere in a dusty, dirty back alley in western Arizona, not far from historic Route 66, is an old fart trying to cram a square peg into a round hole. He'll work on anything, just as long as it's got at least 2 cool wheels.
So this little panel here, I think I showed you in a previous video, this is for some kind of a dipstick, and I'm using the factory dipstick, so I don't need this, and I've got it plugged in
there's no leakage from the plug, but if you look, it's oozing right at this seam there. It looks like a cork gasket between this cast piece and the pan itself. So to fix this properly, I've got to unbolt it and take it out from the inside of the pan to replace that gasket. Not real sure why a cork gasket would leak like that, but I think we'll probably end up using RTV because it's pretty resilient. It works real well. But the other thing that I want to do while I've got the engine out is work on the shift linkage a little bit. So the exhaust comes right through here. And when this is in park, which it's now it's in low, but when it's in park, it sits right about here, and there's no way to get a pipe into the flange. So I need more room. I need to move this over somewhat. Now what I've already done is I've already moved it forward, and I ended up relocating this hole here. So the whole bracket has shifted this way, which helped, but it's not enough. So I think what's going to end up happening is I'm very likely going to end up taking this bracket portion here and moving it to the other side of this, if that makes any sense. See, tip it out of the way a little bit. So it'll be on this side over here, and that'll move it over far enough. The thing is, if when I drop it into low, if the lever's on this side, well, I'm going to run into some metal here, so we're going to have to notch this area here, and that's why the white paint pen marks are there. You know, custom. You know, anyway, let's see if that works, and that should give us the clearance we need to get a nice exhaust pipe connected to those headers. So I hopped into the car and headed over to Friday Racing to see if Cole could help me with my project. He's helped me out in the past, and you may remember him from other videos.
Come on.
I got another weird one for you. Let me show you what I need. I know you guys can handle it.
Let's see what you got.
The last video got cut short a little bit.
Oh, that happened.
All right, so Cole has completed the modifications, although we do need to, I can hack that off at home.
Trim it off.
Yeah, but now we've moved on the other side of that bracket. I should have the clearance I need for my exhaust. Good job, Cole.
Thank
you very much.
Absolutely.
I appreciate it.
New toy for you.
Right on. Once again, if you're in the northwestern part of the state of Arizona, these are the guys to go to for all your custom off-road modifications, stuff like that. Cole does a great job and makes some really cool off-road vehicles. Alright, I'm gonna crawl up in here and see. Ow! You know, this crawling under the hood thing used to be so much easier when I wasn't so old. Oh, goodness. Well, the limbs, they don't bend like they used to. There we go. Alright. So right down here is where we're going with it. And this is going to get cut off here. This is too long. The main thing is, can it do what I want it to do without interfering? I think I'm going to be notching a little bit on the old K-member frame assembly, but let's see here. Alright, so even though these aren't tightened down all the way, it gives us a pretty good idea of what's going on. So this will sit like this. And when the shifter goes all the way down, as you can see, the arm is kind of running into the K-member here. So we're going to follow this line here, and we're going to notch it all out, so that way this thing can go down into this area. And of course, when this is attached, it's even that much wider. But that should do what we're trying to do. I do know that by cutting into this portion of the K-member, which is essentially the frame holding the suspension and the engine to the rest of the car, I probably compromised the structural integrity of this K-member, which means that I've got to do something to prevent it from folding like a taco the first time I hit a large dip, or, decide to jump over a creek, Dukes of Hazzard style. So what we're going to do is we're going to run a bungee strap, just like this one, from one end of the car to the other, and that'll hold it because this has been weakened. No, this is single layer. It's not really very structural. Down here is probably, but I don't think this is going to compromise it at all. Okay, it's now in place, and even if the shifter goes all the way down, I have sufficient clearance on all sides. And of course, the transmission will be sitting up higher. There's another bracket that comes here. But I've got the full range of motion, and I've moved this over almost 2 inches. And now my exhaust, which will come right through here, should have the clearance we need to attach some pipes to it. So I'm pretty happy with that. Next thing I want to do is I want to get some protection for this fuel hose. Well, it's kind of old and dry. We're going to put a fresh piece on, and then I'm going to build some kind of a heat shield to, protect it. Because hot exhaust and rubber fuel hose, well, they don't get along real well. So I threw together a quick heat shield and just piggybacked off the same bolt that holds our shifter bracket we just had off. Just got a longer bolt, and there's a nut in here as a spacer so that it doesn't put too much of a kink on the hose. And it looks like it'll be fine. It doesn't seem to be kinked. But now it makes that turn so it's not going to accidentally come into the steering shaft or into the hot exhaust collector of the header, which is going to be like, right here. So then it, makes its merry way over to the electric fuel pump, which I've rigged up. You didn't see that in the last video. So I got the car where I just turned the key and it ran. I mean, right now, you just bumped the key and it was running. So with these improvements here, it'll be able to shift, and we'll be able to install an exhaust system. And then in one of my shorts, I think you might have also noticed, I came up with a way to deal with the strange, odd shape of the radiator hose in relationship to the radiator in this car. So we'll be able to put a cooling system in it when we get it back in. Hell, we might even take it around the block.
So I'm still waiting for the oil pickup tube. So that's supposed to be arriving tonight. So that means tomorrow I can do the last little bit of stuff I want to do. Drop the pan, install the new oil pump and pickup tube, try to resolve that leak in the oil pan, and then we can drop this puppy right back in the car. Now, I didn't order an oil pan gasket for this because it's the rubber gasket, so they're reusable. And actually, it should probably stick to the engine block, since there's a couple of points where we used RTV at the joints and so forth. If I have to get a new gasket, I may have to order it. I don't know if any of the local auto parts store will have one in stock, but nonetheless, we'll take this thing off, see what's going on inside.
Well, it turns out I cannot use the high volume pump, because if you put the two pumps kind of next to each other, I don't know if you can really see the difference, but the housing right here where my thumb is considerably wider than the OEM pump, which means it's going to protrude further down into the tank. And I measured it, and it's about 1/4 of an inch longer than the OE pump. Now, if we look in the pan, try to get a focus going here, we can see that the bottom corners of the pump are already contacting the pan here. I don't have 1/4 of an inch space with which to install the high volume pump. So we're going to run the stock pump. Don't have a lot of choice because of the different pan. A lot of schmutz in there, huh? Awfully dirty for only having been run just a couple of minutes. But that's good. That means we're getting all the crud out. Alright, so it was a little disappointing I couldn't use the oil pump. However, I did go ahead and install the correct
oil pickup screen and tube. So that should increase the flow a little bit. Now the next problem is our leak from the pan. And I think I spotted the problem because if you look real closely here, you can see the shape of the cast piece doesn't match the shape of the pan. And that cork gasket isn't thick enough to compensate. I've got a little gap there. So that would explain the leakage. So we're going to go ahead and pull that cast piece off, and we'll use RTV to seal it properly. Yeah, it wasn't even contacting up here. I mean, it's just, of course it leaked. RTV to the rescue. So going back in wasn't nearly as easy as it was the first time for some reason. I couldn't figure out why the transmission and the engine would not mate up. Well, it turns out that the torque converter had slipped out of one of its splines. And so I couldn't pull it all the way in. I didn't want to force it. You can break the pump. So I ended up having to completely remove the transmission to put the torque converter back in its place properly. And as you can see, when the torque converter slides out of its place, well, it makes a big mess. But we'll get it. Okay, I got our torque converter and our tranny put in properly. Yay me. What a pain in the neck. So, sure didn't go in as smoothly as it did the first time. Anyway, kind of the main thing I want to look at is look how much clearance we have around that exhaust flange with our shift linkage. Now I can get a pipe in here. I can get a bolt in here. I'll have clearance. You know, it can't be a real big pipe, but it'll still clear that. So that was the whole purpose of all this modification stuff. So I'm happy with that. And No leaks from the part of the pan that we repaired, so that's good. Actually, no leaks anywhere. This is just from the torque converter having come out. So that's not a problem. Yeah, we got a lot accomplished, although I may eventually have to put a different engine or rebuild this engine. Yay, she's all back together again. So everything is all the way it's supposed to be. The only thing I'm still waiting for parts-wise is a little round ball that goes on the throttle linkage so I can connect my throttle cable. I've got my detent cable connected, so if I rotate the throttle shaft, it kicks it down. I came up with a cooling system. Lower radiator hose was the same as a Mustang 5-liter. And this one, I think you guys might have seen the video, we just made a U-turn and found a way to get it here. So I do have a cooling system. And I still have yet to hook up my electric choke. So everything should be good to go. All I need now, well, is the most expensive part, the exhaust system. Well, watch this. Turn the key. So the oil pressure is extremely low. It's, this was a sight unseen engine. Well, that's going to do it for this episode. In the next episode, we'll haul around a trailer to a couple of exhaust places and try to come up with some kind of an exhaust system for it. I'm not overly concerned about the low oil pressure. I don't think that gauge is real accurate. It is pretty low. But it was a $400 engine. We didn't know if it was any good at all. So I'll drive it until it locks up, and I have to have it towed home. Anyway, thanks for watching. Don't forget to click the like button, click the subscribe button, and tell your enemies about this channel so you can bore them to death. Thanks for watching.